Hello and welcome to Wednesday, July 8th, during this 14th week of Ordinary Time of our liturgical year. I don't know about you, but sometimes when I read stories from the Gospels, especially about the stories about Jesus and who he gathered around him as his followers, sometimes I wonder, what was he thinking? I mean, they're not super talented. They really kind of come from basic and very humble backgrounds. One betrayed him, another denied him, most ran away and hid when Jesus needed them the most. They argued among themselves who was the best. It was an interesting cast of characters for sure. But then I think about it again, and I actually feel consoled by it, because with all of my human frailties and failures, God must be able to see something worthwhile in me and call me to be a part of his mission, just like those first disciples. In the time of Jesus, it was common for a rabbi or teacher to have followers who listened to their teaching and how they opened up Scripture. They were the students or disciples of that teacher. In the Gospel of Matthew, from today's reading, we hear about the calling of a specific 12 of those disciples to move from being a student to an apostle, which literally means messenger, one who was sent forth to carry the message of the teacher out to others. Now, what is pretty amazing in that is that in this passage we read that Jesus not only sends them forth with a message, but he sends them forth with the power to drive out unclean spirits and heal illnesses and diseases. He not only entrusts them with his message, but also with the ability to perform acts of healing, just as he did. So I'm trying to understand how that must have been for the apostles when they realized what their mission was. Now, many of you probably have heard of St. Ignatius of Loyola. He was the founder of the Jesuits, but he was also a great teacher of spirituality and prayer. And he suggests that when you want to get deeper into a scripture passage to reflect on it, that we use our imagination to actually put ourselves in the scene that is happening in Scripture, to become a part of it in order to understand it more deeply. And so when I spend time reflecting on this passage, I'm trying to understand how the apostles must have felt and what they were thinking when Jesus called them to not only be his messengers, but be able to perform these miracles. So I'm going to take on the stance of being one of the apostles. So I'm a student of Jesus, and I know I can proclaim his message because I've been listening to him all this time, and I feel comfortable preaching. But now Jesus is saying that I'm going to be able to work these signs and wonders just like he did. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, that actually scares me, because what if I'm not ready for it? You know, should we practice first before we go out to make sure that we can do it? Maybe Jesus made a mistake in choosing me to go forth on this mission. And so what St. Ignatius would try to teach about prayer is that when you let yourself be a part of the scene and start having a conversation as one of the characters and have conversation with Jesus in that scene, that you're not only having a conversation about what's happening in the scene, but you're having a conversation with Jesus about something in your own life in the present moment. It's a way to get in touch with Jesus and what's happening in your life right now. So what do I hear Jesus saying to me from this scene in the gospel? And maybe what is it saying to you? I hear Jesus reminding me and challenging me that when I feel called by God, I don't have to do it all on my own. The grace and the strength needed to respond to that call is not of my own making, but it's God working through me. So, for example, during these days, I'm sensing a deep call to respond to the racial awakening that's happening within our country. And as I think about that, I find myself overwhelmed as to what can I do. And I know myself well enough that when I start to feel overwhelmed, I can make all kinds of excuses to not do anything. And so as I talk to Jesus about that, I hear him asking me, why do you think you need to do this all on your own? Look around and find other people, other companions who want to be a part of this with you. And I hear God asking, do you think that I would leave you alone in this? Do you think that I am not with you? So similarly, in the scripture passage today, I imagine Jesus assuring the apostles that he is with them and filling them with the strength and the wisdom they need. And he reminds them that they have others on the journey as well, those who will be with them as they go forth with his message. The times that in which we are living right now are demanding a great deal of those of us who are followers of Christ. On many levels, we are being called to a courage and a commitment that we must know deep in our bones has Jesus at the source. That courage and commitment, they're not rooted in me. They're rooted in the healing love of Jesus. And just as the apostles were sent out into the world during their time, we are being called to do the same today. And so maybe during the course of your day, you can find some quiet and have that conversation with Jesus. And to ask Jesus, what is needed from me in order to be your witness in the world right now? How am I being called by you, Jesus, to respond to what's happening in our world? And I think that the idea of being called can often seem scary and fill us with doubt. Because I think what do I have to share? I don't have that much ability. Other people are called to do something, but I'm not. And I think that's a common thought that we have. So as a little part of your homework for today, I'm going to encourage you to check out the new podcast that we are doing in the parish. It's called From Where I Stand. And this podcast will have parishioners who will share about their stories of being called. And I think what's neat about that is when you hear other people's stories, we begin to recognize our own callings in our own life. So if you go to the website, and on the top of the homepage there are those rotating slides, and one of them says C3 Podcast From Where I Stand. And if you click on that, it'll take you right to the podcast. So I hope that you'll give it a listen. So as a way to close, I'm going to offer a quote about calling. And this is by Frederick Buechner. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name correctly, and it's Buechner, Frederick Buechner. And this is what he says. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. I'm going to say that again to take that in. The place God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. So I pray that you and your families continue to be safe and healthy. And until we see each other again, wishing you blessings of peace and hope.